नमस्ते, हमारा नाम है वरुण माया और हमारा काम आज है Gemini 3 रिव्यू करना। ये एक टूल है जिसके साथ हम बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं। Just kidding. Gemini 3 is a fantastic model. Like every other model provider comes out and says, ours is the best model in the world. As of right now, for the next 2 or 3 months, Gemini 3 is the best model in the world, according to all the benchmarks. But I'm not going to bore you with the benchmarks. What we are going to do, as usual, is we're going to take some use cases that I believe were hard to sort of pull off on previous models. So I'm going to compare this to GPT-5, which I've done a full deep dive video the day it went live, which was several months ago. And I'm going to show you all the criticisms that people lobbed at GPT-5 that Gemini 3 can sort of solve. Now remember, we're getting model updates and progress every 3 or 4 months, which is a good reason for you to hit subscribe on the channel, because here we actually deep dive. We'll try a lot of prompts. I'll try to keep it simple and we'll test it in multiple different ways so that you walk away with some use cases, some ideas of what the model does. But the only way to truly learn is to open Gemini, make an account and start using the 3.0 model. Okay, so I'm going to be doing most of this in something called AI Studio, which is you can use the Gemini subscription and do it from the Gemini official gemini.google.com or whatever the link is, or you can do it in aistudio.google.com. I like using aistudio.google.com because it's got this section called build. So if you remember, the main criticism against GPT-5 was that the websites it generates all look kind of the same. They all had that same purple crypto website vibes. I think Gemini solved that, but I think it's best proven with examples. So I'm going to do examples in 2 or 3 ways. The first way is I'm actually going to just prompt and see what it comes up with. And then I'm going to take images from other platforms, other people's websites and ask for a replication, but with some changes, because we don't want to, Control C, Control V their website. I just want to see what it comes out with. I'm not saying that you should use this or this is the format you should do it with. Let's start our series of tests with websites. We'll do a little bit of front end. Of course, there's going to be no back end attached, but we'll do websites with a little bit of, let's see what apps look like as well. So I'm going to start with a prompt. I'm in AI Studio right now. I have Gemini 3 Pro preview selected. I'm going to prompt, make a website for a credit card company called Bread, P-R-E-D, with nice skeuomorphic design, animated header. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. Morphic design. Animated header, text that says, not everybody gets it. That's their tagline. And a lot of hero icons and testimonials that are, sort of marqueing from left to right. A lot of hero icons with orange with let's do black and gold, with gold accents. Okay. The general website theme is black and gold, with the black seeming like a UI recreation of the credit card texture. Actually, instead of saying like a UI recreation, let's say seeming like with the background seeming like a recreation of the credit card texture. Okay. Make it look cool, modern, and animated. Let's go. See what it makes. So one thing I like about Gemini is it gives you suggestions. For example, it's saying add interactive card application form. It's saying implement dynamic card feature showcase. It's saying enhance testimonial marquee with user avatars. I really like those. Although I don't think this is the way we're going to be making websites. I think what's going to happen is you're going to give it a reference. You're going to go find somebody else's website. You're going to be like, make something like this, but when Gemini creates it, it's not going to create exactly the same thing. It's going to create it with slight difference. And that difference is going to be enough to give your website uniqueness. Because it turns out in the real world, because I've hired so many website designers, I've made websites when I was much younger. First, in HTML, CSS, raw with JS, and then many years later with Webflow. You'll see a tutorial that I've done 7 or 8 or 9 years ago with Webflow. And then of course with now these modern tools that exist, right? I've tried making websites in all different eras. In fact, I've done websites in an era. We used to use HTML, CSS, but we used to use a paradigm called tables, where you actually had to make the website in Photoshop and then slice it up. So I've seen all these different iterations, right? And every time a new iteration comes out, the old people say, oh, the new way sucks. But it's always been very reference based. We always look at somebody else's reference and then say, I want to make a version of this, which is why you have this huge mimetic drive of when somebody when there's a new style of websites that comes out, everyone starts copying it. Linear, for example, for all SaaS companies, when they start making a certain type of websites, everyone started copying it. It's a very common thing. So I believe this putting a reference and then saying make something like this is going to be very common. Therefore, there's so much human value in uniqueness. If you come out with an actual new unique idea of a website style, that's how you stay ahead, which is not easy to do, right? It's not easy to come up with unique ideas all the time. All right, and our website is ready. As you can see, it's not great. Like, it still looks cheaply done, right? Like, if you look at this, not everybody, the bevel here is like ugly. You can tell it's using a bunch of different things, and you can tell there's some animation. You can hover over, you can see some of this nice, let's just expand this a little bit. You can see a little bit of nice, vibe. You can see these moving around. You can see one nice pause, that double dash here, the apostrophe here. It's okay, but this is not how we're going to make websites in the future. I'll tell you how you'd have much higher success. You would go to, and I'm actually going to do this in Gemini directly. I'm not going to do this in AI Studio because it's a little bit faster in Gemini directly.
We interrupt this segment to talk about today's sponsor, Higgsfield. Now, we've been generating websites with AI for a while now, and honestly, the layouts are incredible. The code is clean, the design is sophisticated, but there is always one thing that keeps breaking the illusion: the assets. Every time. Either you get basic placeholders, or it pulls these generic stock images that make everything look templatized. And I've tested this across a range of models. They're all geniuses at structure, but terrible at visual identity. It's like having a puzzle that's 95% complete, but that one missing piece makes it obvious something is off. But logically, that shouldn't be a problem anymore because diffusion models have gotten insane. We actually have the tools to fix this. You just need to pair the right art engine with your coding engine. That's where Higgsfield fits in. They have everything in one spot, like Nano Banana Pro for illustrations, 2D assets, custom graphics, basically the exact tools you need to fill in those generic placeholders. And it just connects everything perfectly. You generate your structure in Gemini, but you create your specific assets in Higgsfield. Suddenly, you have something that doesn't look like a prototype. It looks like a shipped product. And for developers or anyone vibe coding apps, this is something you'd actually ship. Asset quality is what separates amateur work from professional results. We actually partnered with Higgsfield on this Black Friday sale. It's 65% off for 3 days, and that includes unlimited 4K image generations. So you can really dial in the look without worrying about limits. Now back to the video.
So let's actually go to Perplexity's website. Let's go to Comet's website. So perplexity.ai/Comet. Let's see how well Gemini does. I'm just going to copy this. I might have to send it a screen recording, but for now, I'm just going to copy the link. I'm going to say, make this website in Canvas. Exactly. That's it. Stupid prompt. Make this website in Canvas. Exactly. When you give references, it might be useful, but I haven't actually tried just giving a website link and asking it to look at it and come back. It's probably better to give it a big screenshot or a sort of video recording. So let me do that. Select a recording area. So I'm going to record this area. Okay. I'm going to start and I'm going to record this website. It is a pretty website. Okay. And I'm going to stop recording. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this on my desktop as Perplexity recording. So I'm going to select thinking. I'm going to build. I've turned on Canvas. So as you can see, the Canvas icon is here. And I'm going to upload the Perplexity video I just recorded. I'm going to say, make this website for a browser called Comet exactly. So now we've uploaded the video. We've asked it to make a website for a browser called Comet exactly. So as you can see, it's saying, I'll create a pixel perfect recreation of the Comet browser landing page based on the video provided. I'll use React and Tailwind CSS to replicate the layout, typography, which is serif headings, animations, and custom UI elements like the 3D spheres and the bento grid feature cards. Okay, cool. I am waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, vibe waiting. Oh, look at how much work I'm doing. I have an idea. Every single time the thing is generating something, I'm going to speak in Hindi. Okay? So, my Hindi is terrible. I studied it for 14 years. Oh, thank God, saved by the output. Okay, so here's the output. Let's take a look. Let's share this. I'm going to copy this. Let's see this on a big screen. Wow. This is actually pretty cool. I can seem hoverable, clickable. I can't seem to click inside this. I don't know if Perplexity allows that, but it wouldn't know from the screenshot, from the recording. These look very nice. They're not exactly the same color, but they look very, very, very nice. Like all of these placeholders, everything looks very nice. These are very simplistic 3D balls. I assume you need to generate these images with Nano Banana or whatever, which I think they will let you do at some point. The FAQs, and you can see a little bit of this cutoff as well. I think that's by design. It feels like it's by design because it fits here very well. And then download. This is not perfect, and you can see those lines, those wavy lines in the background on Perplexity's website are missing, but it's still very, very, very good. Like if I went to a website that looked like this, I potentially would make a decision, right? Like if I had to make a buying decision or a download decision, this website wouldn't turn me off. It still requires a little bit of work. That's where the human comes in, the last 5-10% of work, but it is a reasonably good output. It's a much better output than what we got with bread. And that's what I'm telling you, right? I think we're entering a world where, let's say you don't want to use somebody else's work. You'll probably go to an image generator or Nano Banana, generate a design. You'll like the design. You'll generate a screenshot of the design. You'll be like, this is a very, very good design. And then you'll dump that into Gemini and say, hey, now can you make this website for me? I think that's going to be the path. Unless it's already a very well-known website or very well-known app. I'll give you an example. Okay, and this brings me to my second example. Let's say on Gemini, I want to create, I'm just going to create in Canvas, make Facebook app front end. Facebook app front end. Submit. Now you can see I'm putting in 4-5 word prompts. And you might think, Varun, if you prompt this a little better, the outputs will be better. Maybe, but I'll tell you what I prefer these days, okay? Especially with things where Gemini already has context. Gemini already knows what Facebook looks like. So I prefer an output, and then I prefer to manually go in and ask for changes. And you can do that very well. Earlier when you asked for changes, it would rewrite the entire code base. It still does that. But the entire output would change, like every part of the output would change. But now you can go micro and be like, just change only this specific button. And it's somewhat good at keeping context and saying, I will only change this button, which is very different from, some of the earlier, GPT-4 outputs or even the earlier Gemini outputs, right? Where it would lose track of the entire thing if you asked it to change one small thing. So anyway, it's making Facebook clone. I think we are reaching an era where even if you want to communicate with AI, you need to give a lot of context. So either you write like 5-sheet prompts or you just give it an image. And I think most of us will choose the approach of first generating an image and then sending it to AI. So here we are. We've got Facebook, which is nice. It looks exactly like Facebook, like there's nothing changed. As you can see, in the front end, this got updated. This is not storing it anywhere. Alex Johnson, hello. Yeah, this is an exact copy of Facebook, right? None of these buttons work, and I could probably prompt it to make those buttons work because this can all happen at the front end level. But this is a very, very, very good Facebook output with none of the buttons working. Now, you integrating it, hooking this up with your backend should be straightforward. Now, there are tools like Lovable and Emergent and a bunch of others that have come out, even Replit now, that allows you to take the front end and connect it with the backend that they give you. So they have things like Superbase, which you can just set up on the fly, which I think is useful, but I don't know if anyone's going to directly use this or even a backend that any of these tools generate and just put it online there. Maybe you can do it for simple apps. So let's say you want to build a blogging website. You would use WordPress, and then you'll use AI to regenerate the front end to make you look different from everybody else. Same if you're building a commerce store, you'd use Shopify, and then you would use AI to take that existing front end and change it up enough. I think that's the route people will use this in, because I feel like backends specifically, and frankly, the more complicated it gets, the more complicated your backend gets, and the more you want stability, the more you're at scale, you're not going to one-shot with these. In fact, the way to build backend with AI is probably to use a cursor or an anti-gravity, right? You would probably use a cursor and say, hey, I'm writing code and this is good auto-completion. It's code completion. So you still need a human guiding the process of what the backend is, knowing the entire context and using AI to kind of write it for you. But I think front ends, you'll generate whatever your UI, UX or your product manager has given you and you'll hook it in. But I think that's going to be exposed to end customers. And I think end customers will just directly use this, right? So I think that's pretty cool. Although I do believe that a human is required in the loop a little bit, right? Like you saw with the Perplexity website, somebody has to swap out all those images. It's not impossible for the AI to do, okay? And I think AI tool use, which is can you go to Nano Banana directly, generate those planets and bring it back in my Perplexity website in this location, that I think will take a little more time. It's not very, very far away. And I'm confident that at some point that will be solved as well. But I think as a software engineer now, your job is more the synthesis role. You're no longer writing code. You're playing one step up and deciding what to build end to end. And I think these are tools that help you go 10x faster. So I do believe the top software engineers are going to do 10x what other people can do or 100x what other people can do, which unfortunately comes at the price of other software engineers. Remember, I've said this infinite times, right? India has overproduced software engineers. We have real estate companies that are pretending to be colleges selling seats, but they're creatively charging you rent. So it's a rent company instead of, like a college, like teaching you stuff. And so many of those people who graduate from college don't even know how to use Git. So the minute you have that combined with this, really, if there's somebody who understands software very well and also has the distribution to get enough clients, I think they'll win. Like your competition is not very good. So I do believe that, the 10x software engineer will do 100x the jobs now, which we are entering the world of. The other problem with this is I think that also dips the value of software. So when you have these sort of phenomenon where it's easier and easier to build something, the value of that drops. Supply demand is a curve that applies to all jobs. If tomorrow we found a huge gold mine that had infinite gold that you can mine very easily, the value of gold would dip. Similar thing has happened to software already. We've already seen some of the layoffs that are happening at TCS and other companies. But remember, none of these macro level things matter if you're a great software engineer. This is your time. This is the time for you to go 100x of everybody else, but there is a lot of competition. And the problem with the extremely competitive spaces like this is it's very hard to take breaks. It's very hard to spend time with your family, this, that, because it's a rat race, right? You're competing with hundreds, thousands of people. So I really think you need to make your choices around this wisely. Anyway, I want to show you 2 or 3 more websites, and I'm just going to put it up here, which we've already made with Gemini. So you can see the website, you can see the prompt, you can copy it if you want to. Anyway, now let's ask for harder stuff. So I'm going to ask it to make a simple video editor in the cloud. I can upload images and music and stitch them together in a timeline. The basic features of Premiere Pro in the cloud. Okay? Cool. Make sure it works. And I hit enter. While this loads, right, I want to tell you the crazy thing about progress. I feel like we just become so normalized to progress. There was a person the other day on Twitter who was just like, oh, only design has improved. That's all. Wow, I expected more. But think about it, right? Like the difference between GPT-5 and Gemini 3, it's just been a few months. And the entire AI thing started, I remember, we built God in a Box in November 2022. We launched it in November 2022, which means we started building it around October, let's say, 2022. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. We're in 2025 end almost. So let's say 3 to 4 years. In 3 or 4 years, we've had so much progress with AI. Do you remember the early DALL-E images? Do you remember the early LLM outputs? Do you remember GPT-3? I put GPT 3.5 in WhatsApp. So I remember how terrible it was. To see it from there, and we used to use things like automatic agents. We built something called AutoCode Pro. To see it go from there to here has been phenomenal. And it's so easy to lose track and be like, oh, bas itna progress 3 months mein, 4 months mein. Like, what are you expecting it to do? Like, are you expecting it to come in and just replace everything and then be like, oh, we have AGI? Are you waiting for it to come replace everything and then wake up? Anyway, so we've got Premiere Pro. It's called Cloud Edit. Let me just open it. Let's see how much of this works and how much of this doesn't, because mostly in the front end. Okay, so I'm going to add an image. Let me just download an image. I go to Google and type image. Okay, download an image. Let me just work with images for now. Uploaded the image. Okay, now let's add one more image. Okay, I'm adding another image. So I added two images next to each other. Let's see if I can rearrange them. No, it doesn't seem like I can rearrange them. Can I move the timeline? No, it doesn't seem like I can move the timeline. Otherwise, or maybe I'm missing keys. Okay. Oh yeah, I can add duration. So let's say I add 10 seconds. Okay, at least it's able to stretch out the images. I'm pretty sure I can ask it to move the timeline and it'll do it. We'll try that. Let's see if I can export video. Oh, it's moving the timeline. It's rendering. Not bad. Very simple. Are you going to give me an output, my friend? I'll be very surprised if you give me an output. Although this should be an easy operation. Okay, I stuck. So yeah, I mean, by the way, I don't think this is spectacularly any different from GPT-5 because I've run some of these experiments on GPT-5. It kind of does the same thing. Sometimes the timeline works, sometimes the timeline doesn't work. Exporting never works. I'm fairly sure that, look, apps like this need somewhere to process, right? Especially if you're using Python to stitch, clips together and stuff. It needs some space to go out and process. It needs dedicated compute, which doesn't exist here. So it's obvious that this is failing. That's why I said right now the tools are fragmented. So you need a human to come and say, I'll generate an UI with this, I'll generate this with this, I'll generate this with this and put it together. And here I will write a little bit of manual glue. But compared to writing software 20 years ago, it's much, much, much faster. And I think that whoever starts binding all these things together and moving quickly can end up building hundreds of pieces of software. But again, when that can happen, when supply demand gets kind of muddled, the price of software goes down. So if you take the specific field of software as a service, what will end up happening is that, let's say all these sales forces of the world will continue to become big, right? They already are big. They're going to keep their domain. Zoho will continue to be big. They'll keep their domain. But the new entrants coming in will find that they now have to compete with hundreds of other micro entrants who are all using AI to build their apps much, much quicker. And one of the people will wake up and be like, I will sell my app at 0 or I'll sell my app at 0.1. So there's a price race to the bottom, which means nobody makes money, which is not a good world to live in. So there's the enterprise segment where there are big companies who are willing to pay the Salesforces and the Zohos of the world. And then there's the lower segment where, everyone's racing to 0. I don't know how much money is in there. And I feel like because I've run a SaaS company in the past, I know you have to choose one of the two domains. Mass market, low ticket SaaS or very big enterprise SaaS. The mid market is graveyard. And there's a very beautiful article about this, which I'll link in the description, which is actually about, and I sort of read this when I was building a SaaS tool, right, for companies to run their communities many, many years ago, which is that when you're selling to these companies, you have to choose this, either you're like selling at like a 50 lakhs, a crore a year, but big solution, services along with the solution, human beings to help them set it up, etc. Or you're going very low ticket, very low price, but huge, like hundreds of thousands of customers, millions of customers. The middle area is graveyard. And nobody makes money there, where you're like $200 or $500 and it's not clear who the decision maker is. At $500 or $1,000 a month, is it like a junior person in the company who's going to use their card? No, they're not going to spend that much a month. A senior person with a big check writing capability is not going to care that much about $500,000 a month. It's a very weird spot. So mid-market is not a very good place to be in. Actually, it's more about the kind of customers you target, but this is something to think about. Now, let me show you some other more fun stuff that we've already done with Gemini. I don't want to waste time writing the prompt. I'll just tell you what the prompt is. I don't want to waste time writing the prompt because it just takes some time on the video. So we generated a nice little iOS weather app. Again, we're running all these on CodePen. But yeah, it's just a very simple, weather app. Next, and I thought this was interesting because it was one of my first projects. When I was learning Ruby on Rails 12, 13 years ago, I want to make a PC builder. And the thing about making a PC builder, which is what motherboard, what RAM, what CPU to add in, is that some CPUs are only compatible with some motherboards, right? So there's this compatibility chain that's very, very important. And also you actually have to go out and figure out the price of all of this on Amazon. So I actually asked Gemini to do that. I went to Gemini 3 and I asked it for, hey, I want to make a PC builder in India. Go to Amazon, find products of all these ranges, figure out compatibility and give it a nice graphical UI where I can add in a wizard step by step each element. And then when I add an element, it looks like a PC is being completed. I actually typed this prompt in, got this output. So I'm going to show you. It's called Gaming PC Builder. So let's say I'm adding the Asus ROG. And as you can see, it made this nice little illustration of a motherboard. And you can see the slots that are available. So then I'll go to CPU. And as you can see, lots of these are grayed out because the Ryzen CPUs don't work with this motherboard. Let's say I'm taking the Intel i3-900K. I drop it here. Okay. Try to do that. Okay. And as you can see, the i3-900K just dropped in and you can see it here. I can press X. Beautiful UI. Thank you so much, Gemini. Let me add in some RAM, G skill. Okay, sorry, I have to drop it in the right location. So let me add 2 RAM sticks. I added 2 RAM sticks, they turned yellow. Very pretty. Let me add a 1 TB NVMe, and it's very nice. Let me add a 4070 Ti here. And as you can see, it generated it with the fans. It's so beautiful. Okay, and finally, of course, let me add in a PSU, which is a power supply unit. Let me add the deep cool 750 watt. As you can see, there's an electricity bolt there. It's 2,19,800. I should have asked Gemini to add another button saying link to all the products with an affiliate code, and then people can buy it, which I didn't do here. But as you can see, I actually spent months learning how to do something like this when I was 17 or 18. The compatibility chain actually is a little bit hard, and I can't believe we one-shotted it. It's crazy that we're able to do this today, right? And Gemini 3 can do it out of the box. Yeah, the only problem is now everybody can do it, right? So it depends on what ideas you have and how much, how many people can you get to this website? Let's say you make this PC builder website. How many people can you get to this website? That's all that matters. And I hope this explains why 3 years ago we started focusing as a company, as AOS, so much on distribution, because we kind of saw this coming, right? It's like, even if we disagree on timelines, even if you say, okay, Varun, it's going to take 2 more years for coding to get better. And let's say 3 years ago, we said, I had a timeline, let's say you had a timeline. Even if the difference was 1 or 2 years, a career doesn't last just 4 or 5 years, right? It lasts a very long period of time, and you'll do multiple things during that career. Doesn't it make sense to do first what is most valuable if things do get automated? That's what we focused on. So I do believe that now that everyone can build this, the value of building it is lesser. The value of now this synthesis, this plus can I get users on this, plus can I negotiate with all the people providing me parts, all this Corsair, Deepcool, etc., MSI, NVIDIA and all, and tell them, hey bros, can you give it to me at slightly more discount? So it's a little bit of B2B sales with them to give you a little more discount, a little bit of getting users to your platform, advertising, content creation, however you want to do it. And then of course, using AI to help build the products. And of course, if you want to change it a little bit, you can. But I think, let's say even if you improve the UI on this like 10-20%, my question to you, does it matter? Does performance on this website matter? Like it's loading, like I'm in the corner of my office, right? I'm not even on LAN. It's loading reasonably well. I see a lot of conversation on Twitter about, oh, but AI can't do, like the code won't be performant or those images will load slowly. If you look at this website, they're not even images. Like all of this is just even the fans moving here are not real images. So I do believe that AI can write even more performant code. Those are not the things to focus on. Those are not the things to keep improving, because you're competing with this thing that's moving really fast. Instead, you're like, how can I do synthesis? How can I do the parts that AI doesn't do? How can I do that 10-20% adding masala on this, getting the users, negotiating for discounts? Those matter. Those matter more. And actually, if you look at India's IPOs recently, look at Lenskart, look at even Zomatos of the world, even if you look at Grows of the world, even if you look at PhysicsWallas of the world, they are not pure tech. Right? If you want to start a stockbroking platform tomorrow, do you know how many licenses you need to get? Do you know how closely you need to work with, all the government bodies? That's a business moat, right? That's a relationship moat. If you wanted to build Zomato, do you know how much of it is product, how much of it is logistics, how much of it is people management? Like these are all synthesis businesses, right? And it's now easier to do synthesis. It's actually easier for you to go from being an engineer to running a company. It's cheaper to do it. No, money is no longer, as much of an excuse. Anyway, next. Then we made some, we did this thing for to check configuration. I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So as you can see this spindle we created. It's a helmet builder. So I can choose between 2 different types of helmets. So let's say I'm choosing high spire, and then I can change the nasal position where the nose goes. Just some experimentation with 3D. We keep doing this. Whenever a new model comes out, we have a bunch of things we create to see how it ends up doing. The models are now one-shotting most of these, so we need new tests. This is a solar system, interactive solar system we created, which is nice. It's very useful for education, right? Because you can get to visually see ki kya chal raha hai. But I think videos have replaced that in some way. Like I would rather watch a video of the solar system than play around with one of these. But there are games, there were simulators when I was young which allowed you to see physics simulations of planets colliding and stuff. I think it's still there, right? Universe Sandbox or something like that. There's a game that allows you to do it. We generated a simulation of an OS where you can click on stuff, but and it's pretty nice, but none of these work, and the close button also doesn't work. But it's not far away that all of these will work from a front-end level, but now somebody has to build the back-end to bind all of this. I do believe that AI at some point, like if they want to solve AGI, they have to solve everything. Like You type in make an OS and it does everything, front end, back end. That's the goal for Silicon Valley. That's why trillions of dollars are being spent. So that's why I don't think that's a good domain at all. But I still feel like in the next 3-4 years, people who do this combination of everything that this provides with your backend will end up doing a good job. We generated like a fight, like a Mortal Kombat type fight between emojis. So Kraken and let's say Harambe. And by the way, these are all like very, very simple prompts. We created a Lego builder. So as you can see, I can put up some of this stuff. These are all very, very simple prompts. And you'll be surprised by how simple the prompts are, how much of the context it fills in for you. But remember that now it's about seeking these ideas, right? Like where do you find new ideas that other people haven't already put up? This Lego idea is actually an idea I saw on Twitter, right? Whereas some of these ideas we came up with ourselves, some of these ideas we saw on Twitter. So it's like thinking of new unique ideas means you need domain expertise, right? So let's say you work in like, I don't know, like a lights company or something like that, right? And then you see these tools and then you're like, wait, I had a problem statement I'm dealing with, which this tool can help me. So I think problem first approach is very, very useful because then all these tools that are coming in, you can use it in the problem. Like 3 years ago, our problem was how can we use all of AI in video, right? Our goal was video and video games when we started. And it's part of our, I wrote this one document about what we're going to do. And everything in AI, we have used towards that. Everything. So if you look at AI avatars, if you look at some of the software we built to manage our videos at scale, we have our own internal GitHub for video, where you can see multiple versions. If you see the video editing school that we built, that has no AI in it, right? We teach a little bit of AI, but it's a manual school that's being run. If you look at VO3, if you look at Nano Banana for thumbnails, if you look at GenFill in Photoshop, these have all helped the main problem statement of videos. So any new model that we see with AI, we're like, how can we use it to solve our main problem of video? Which I think has been crazy. So if you just pick a problem statement, then everything in AI, suddenly you'll have like 10 good ideas. If you ran a computer shop, you'll be like, this is a good idea, I should do this. It'll get me more scale. It'll make it easier for clients to come in with already spec. Therefore, I just have to focus on optimizing how many views this website gets. It's much better than saying I'll pick up the phone and talk to hundreds of clients. There's other stuff with Gemini, which is how it writes and how it reasons. And to be very honest, I don't think most people can notice the difference. Especially with writing, I have not noticed too much of a difference between Gemini 2.5 and Gemini 3, which is why I'm not actually adding it in this video. I feel it also reasons pretty well, so it'll solve most problems you throw at it, but so did Gemini 2.5, and none of us are sitting here solving very difficult math. The last piece of math we used AI to solve was, in our game we have a chakra, right? The fragmented chakra. So AI helped us a little bit with the physics on the return of the chakra, but that was GPT. But it doesn't matter, like you can use any AI model, they're already at that level where they will solve 90% of your problems unless you're sitting and doing physics or math or something like that. So I'm not actually covering that in this video. That's it for me. I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribed. I tried covering the differences. We'll keep doing this for every model henceforth. Make sure you subscribe. Namaskar, and thank you for your time.